It has been a year, my friends, since we embarked on our journey across this ocean of visions. An Examander called it the Unlimited, the Apeiron, I believe, Heraclitus. No matter how deep you go, you can always go further. This journey through the mind. Welcome back, everyone. Artist Journal, August 21st, 2023. Broadcasting from the Library of the Mind in Berlin, Germany. My name is Adrian Pocobelli, and I welcome you back, and thanks for coming back. It's always a risk taking a couple of weeks off, but you got to do what you got to do. Rhodes was fantastic. It really was kind of everything you'd hope for. Go visit Greece. Go support the Greek people. They are masters of relaxation, good food, and good times, really. Beautiful sunsets, beautiful sunrises, warm seas, everything. It was fantastic. So welcome back. There is a ton to get through, as you can imagine. So I am going to keep it snappy. So with that, let's start here with RJ. You know, as I was thinking to myself, what works popped in my head as I thought about the last 2 weeks, and I have to say it was RJ's, and these aren't even sold out. I mean, so it's quite fascinating, and let me just very quickly explain why. So first of all, RJ, there are a series of these, and let me actually bring it up here. There are a series, so as you can see here, these are minted on hen, and there are 4 here in this series. Actually, there are 5. There are 5 in this series so far, so this is probably the one that stood out the most. It is a combination of playing with the old Mac UI or UX, whatever you want to call it, user interface, user experience. Let's call it the UI. Repurposing, so an appropriation of sorts. Repurposing the title of the window here, calling, with machines, right? And then having inside this kind of framing device, this window, basically a really cool pixel artwork with a little bit of writing. Sleeping fitfully, you dream of a room filled with strange machines. And I also found this, it was my favorite poetry of the works. And of course, RJ is a very poetic artist. And here you almost find what look like old radios. It doesn't even matter, just old machines with what looks like an RGB color cycle of sorts here. And I just thought it was a really smart, imaginative series. And I loved the use of these kind of old, brush patterns or brushes that make these patterns here. And I thought it was just kind of brilliantly done. A nice use of retro tools here with retro machines and a beautiful title. This one really just hit it for me. As I like to say, some works just hit, and this one hit. So beautiful, beautiful, beautiful work. Still available. I haven't bought mine yet. I might have to do it soon. There are still 6 left. Shockingly. I mean, it's a great time to buy art if you have the liquidity. There are fantastic deals on Tezos. So let's continue. So, of course, this is part of this bigger series here by RJ. Here's another one, Futility. And this looks like it's using maybe like an old Mac Paint program or something. Another beautifully poetic title here. It is impossible to capture the sky. RJ was playing around with AI, so you do start to wonder if that was incorporated here in this title. File edit goodies I wonder if that's the original here too. So very interesting work and a beautiful attempt at capturing the sky, which looks like maybe using these tools. I'm not sure. Maybe the spray paint tool. Not sure. But again, just another kind of beautifully poetic work here. 10 Tezos, still 4 left. So they are selling, but they're not like flying off the shelves. But I think these are just beautiful classic works, instant classics in my mind. They don't need to be in everybody else's. Another Day, Command Repeat. And again, very poetic title here. Another day. You awake and return to the computer. It has been waiting. And here, kind of a retro computer, this beautiful patterning here, celebrating these old kind of, what I want to call old brushes or just old pixel patterns that you find in, old paint programs, one imagines. And here's another one, mirror images, as we go through them all here. This is sold out, interestingly. And so this is available for $14.85 on secondary. The room is dark. There's a laptop on the desk. You see yourself reflected in the screen, and here we see a skull. And again, looks like that kind of red, green, blue cycle and study here. And again, this kind of old patterning that is all too familiar for us that grew up when some of these programs came out. Mirror images, very, very, very poetic work from RJ. And here's one more beautiful composition on this too, Resignation. Another beautiful title. Your laptop sits at the end of your bed. It cries out for your attention like a cat that needs feeding. Tiredly, you supply it. So you are supplying your computer, your narcissist computer, with the supply it needs. And again, cycling through these elementary colors here, resignation. You succumb to the call of your technology here. And one kind of final thing I just want to point out on this is these decisions here, like it's kind of made to look easy, but you see how the keyboard, it's not like RJ is doing every little key here. There's a certain amount of interpretation and abstraction that's taking place in this keyboard. And I think that's quite beautiful and well done. Some like good judgments and even, just all sorts of stuff here. And even just the empty screen, you could have filled the screen. It's kind of more beautiful empty here as the pigeon looks on our show here on the branch on the tree outside. So continuing on. So that is RJ. I wanted to highlight this because it has been a year, and I started this show as a Spotify, and it was something I kind of returned to over, a couple of years with fits and starts. And I tried again here, and I suggested on the Spotify episode that I posted here that maybe this should be video. And Chi Moscow Jackson weighed in here. Again, it was August 19th that I did the first show. Today is August 21st. So that was Saturday. Cool episode. Definitely make it video. Would be awesome to see referenced artists' work. And that's probably why the reason I actually did do video is because someone actually listened and someone actually said, cool, do it. And sometimes that's all the push you need. So kind of a morality play of sorts there. Continuing on, Michael Micasso, big thank you. So that was a week and a half ago on the Twitter Spaces, 564 tuned in. Great show. It's going to be on the YouTube and the Spotify pretty soon here. So that is exciting. And big thank you to Dina Chang on Curation and Digital Art. That was a ton of fun. It was hilarious to do it at the beach bar there. Big shout out to that beach bar that is named at the beginning of that episode. That was a ton of fun, and big thank you to Dina Chang for showing up and doing a great, super interesting conversation. A ton of people like that. We will do it again. So here it is. So you probably saw this already, but if you haven't, there is a airdrop for those people that were on Hen or Taya, as it has now become. The time has finally come. The distribution period for the Taya DAO tokens among Taya's community members has started today and will last until November 20th. So this is for real. So I think, again, always do your own due diligence. But I claimed my 1,500 tokens there. I was pleased to see. Who knows what they will be worth? I think there was about 8 million tokens that were given out. So they're probably not worth very much. I would imagine a valuation of $2 million. So maybe they're worth 25 cents each. I don't know if there have been, that would be my kind of rough valuation there, but who knows? Maybe it's worth a lot more than that. Welcome to the Taya Tokens claim page. So this is the claim page, how to claim your tokens. Again, always do your own due diligence. Make sure these addresses are right. Don't trust what I'm saying. Do your due diligence, because I don't want anybody to lose anything because they watch this. What I kind of like about what they did, though, finally on this, they showed where they have this link, Taya DAO token distribution. They show where, who got what. So I thought that was really cool. So you see 27,000 was the most. It's actually pretty evenly distributed. So I thought that was actually pretty cool too. Look at how evenly distributed this is. So just kind of I thought it was really nicely done. Again, and it shows how small this is. I mean, how many are there in total? I guess there are 100,000. But a lot of people, maybe they created accounts. If we go up here, finally on this, maybe 25,000, right? And a lot of people barely got anything because maybe they didn't do too much, but it was just, based on different things. I don't know how you get the DAO, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, just kind of cool. Michael Micasso here, I thought this was super cool. This was posted shortly before the Spaces a week and a half ago. Look at the texture here in this, because this is clearly, to me, I don't know if it's clear. It looks like a screen print to me with very thick paint here. And you see the power of screen printing, traveling through the mediums here. And you see the power of screen printing pixel art, because you get, again, that super sharp edge. So, and here it looks like very thick, which kind of adds to the, magistry, for lack of a better term. So really cool work interesting to see the physical work from Michael Micasso, who's on vacation, who I hope is enjoying his vacation. I saw a couple of shots there. They look great. Here's another pen plotter work, and this one I found notable. We can even turn on the volume. That just sounds great. And you can see how precise these are. I mean, this looks like, a dollar, like a currency bill or something. It's generative art, but you just see how incredibly precise these can be. So I just thought that was quite notable. And continuing on, a cool physical work from Popple. Walrus, oil pastel on paper, and digital editing. So interesting. So Popple making a physical work here. And just kind of interesting. It's great to see Popple keep expanding, keep experimenting with physical stuff. And interesting as well. So this is a physical work that is edited digitally. Walrus. And you see kind of Popple's style. And you see almost this haunted figure here within this larger figure here. Interesting work, and more physical world artwork, this time from Flora Marquez, kind of a classic ceramics. And so just really cool, kind of her hallmark style here. Beautifully, beautifully done, I might add. Looks better, the thought in my head is looks better than a Picasso ceramic. Those things, I mean, they're all right. Maybe if I went back to the Picasso ceramics, I'd love them. But anyway, beautiful work from Flora Marquez. Just more physical renditions here. Charles AI, first printed piece getting ready. So it's interesting to see how AI is going to be physically rendered. We're looking at Art Matter and the big oil painting machine, but there's also, just a straight up, what looks like an inkjet print here of one of Charles AI's works. And of course, paper looks quite high quality and beautiful. If you ever ship this stuff, it's always great to have that tissue paper too. It really gives a nice feeling. You can tell it's pretty thick paper. Hanamulla is a famous, 380 gram paper. If you don't know where to start, is a good paper to look for. First printed piece getting ready. That's kind of what this looks like, but who knows? So Charles AI doing some physicals. Just on the conceptual front, the visionary front here, William Gibson at Great Dismal. So the author of Neuromancer, which actually I haven't read. A year or so more of this, and Ballard will easily appear to have been more prophetic than Heinlein. Heinlein, referring to Robert Heinlein, the science fiction writer. At first I thought, oh, cool. William Gibson is recognizing Ballard. And then I thought, well, to me, like Ballard, this happened 20 years ago, arguably longer. Like in a sense, in my universe, Ballard has never been outclassed by Heinlein, but I'm not a Heinlein expert. I tried reading some of it. I always thought, and feel free to disagree, I'm sure there are people watching this who might know much more about Robert Heinlein than I do, but I always thought it was sci-fi for teenagers, actually. But I was looking on Wikipedia just to do a bit of background. I guess he was pretty intent on the hard science part of it and trying to make it realistic. So maybe he made a lot of predictions in that respect. But what made Ballard special is he was able to psychoanalyze, almost like anthropologist of sorts. He was able to psychoanalyze the human being in a very radical, accurate, arguably, in a very accurate way. And that is why many of these kind of things we're seeing today, you can sort of see an early kind of shockwave in reverse, backwards through time in Ballard's work, because he was able to, do what one of the great, missions of art is human nature. Okay, and I've mentioned this before. If we go to Tom Jones by Henry Fielding, if we go to Tom Jones by Henry Fielding, I could actually bring up that introduction right now, and we should. But what we see in there, as I've mentioned before, is that novel, which is considered one of the first, right up there with Samuel, I think, Johnson's Clarissa. What we see in Tom Jones in the introduction that Henry Fielding writes is human nature is our subject matter here. That is our banquet that we're going to feast on throughout this entire novel. Again, one of the first novels in the English language. And so there is a whole tradition in the arts, writing and visual arts, where human nature is the main kind of subject matter. Again, I bring up this term qualitative science, this investigation. In a sense, art, not just for art's sake, but art as a form of knowledge. Okay? And here we're seeing evidence, as William Gibson is pointing out, that there is actually a knowledge, a real knowledge that, not a, quantitative, but a qualitative knowledge that is out there that can be identified. So I just thought this was a really interesting tweet that came out a couple of days ago. This was quite interesting. So Dr. Version, after I think it was last with the Dina Chang Twitter Spaces, during the Twitter Spaces, was mentioning these fake Basquiats. And I thought this was kind of hilarious, actually. So Dr. Version posted this afterwards. The Orlando Museum of Art had an entire show of Basquiat forgeries back in 2022. Really quite an astonishing story, and it ultimately led to an FBI raid. I spoke about this a few times on Pocobelli Space, thought I'd share. What I found kind of hilarious about this is, would you ever imagine in a million years that that's a Basquiat? Like, the fact that anybody at the Thaddeus Mumford Jr. Venice collection thought that, like, the fact that it actually got on display here, to me, this is quite clearly obvious. You know what this is? This is a painting without the poetry. This is a Basquiat without the poetry. Because, of course, anybody that's looked at Basquiat knows every little mark is full of poetry. That's what makes them so beautiful. They're incredibly beautiful. Whereas these marks, there's nothing kind of special about them. And it actually shows how good of an artist Basquiat is when you see in contrast and the fact that anybody thought that they could get away with this is quite hilarious, and that it got that far. It raises a lot of questions. Let's just put it that way. So thank you for posting that. And again, here in the art newspaper, auctioneer who had admitted he helped make fake Basquiat seized by the FBI avoids jail time. And it's obvious here too. It's not as obvious as that last image, but as you can see here, this is like you or me quickly putting some stuff together, but none of the poetry of a Basquiat here. It's quite amazing this got that far. And only paying a fine. Usually for forgeries, especially in the millions of dollars, maybe it got kind of, stopped before people spent money on it. Not sure. So speaking of authorship, so Leonardo da Vinci's, and this is a questionable attribution, by the way. I mean, here's Art News calling it Leonardo da Vinci's $450 million Salvator Mundi painting gets the NFT treatment. So, first of all, just on the authorship here, I am highly skeptical on this. And it's almost like the same argument here. The only part that I think may have had Leonardo in here is here. This looks like student work, which is what I said way at the very beginning of this controversy when this was first released and discovered. This has none of the poetry of a Leonardo. You look at the hair even, it's just the poetry is kind of what's missing. So even here, like if you look at a Leonardo or a Raphael, when you look at the belt, when you look at the stuff, when you look at the neck, you will see poetry everywhere. Okay, and the only place I see poetry is right here. So enough of the tangent. But I did kind of want to keep it with our forgery subject matter here. So I just wanted to also highlight the NFT side of it. The digital asset platform Elmon X will mint the NFT in collaboration with the image licensing company Bridgman Images. Terms of the sale. So I'm not exactly, I find this highly questionable. This whole idea that we're going to take old paintings and then they're actually making an edition. According to the Elmon X website, there were 330 editions of, I guess they did this with the Mona Lisa NFT sold at $191. Additionally, 10 editions of a bundled NFT and print version of the Mona Lisa were, like, to me, this is highly questionable. One of them was resold, like who's, is, even if the Louvre was doing it, who is it for the Louvre to be minting a Mona Lisa? And I'm not even sure the Louvre is doing it. So the whole thing, and they've been doing this with Van Gogh. And why are there 330? Is that because Leonardo, said we should have 330 editions of this? So the whole thing is just highly questionable here. And yeah, so just kind of interesting. We've been mentioning, finally, we've been pointing out for a couple of months here since May that there are tremors in the art market as far as there was the auction that didn't go well. And this is quite interesting just from a valuation and just to kind of look at the contemporary art world and what is happening there. So we have a news story, August 11th, from Katya Kazakina, one of our favorite reporters here, the art detective, and from ArtNet News. The exuberance that gripped the art trade for the past 2 years has dissolved. Here's how to get an edge in the buyer's market. So just more evidence that the kind of fissures we were seeing at the beginning continue. And it just kind of goes to show that I think, how, like, sometimes we, make light of the flippers and everything. I think it just goes to show how much of a, speculative aspect there is to the contemporary, the traditional art scene. And I just find it notable that, and here's a real Basquiat. See, you can tell even from way over here that this is like a real Basquiat. So all to say, the traditional art world continues to kind of slow down. It's kind of being confirmed. Let's put it that way. Continuing on, this became a big debate. I don't want to dwell on it too long. OpenSea is going back. I thought they already got rid of royalties. We launched our operator filter. So they're just kind of chasing their tail on the royalties subject here. We launched our operator filter so creators could restrict secondary sales to Web3 marketplaces that enforce creator fees. So we tried to save the day, but we relied on opt-in by the entire ecosystem. Kind of an unrealistic proposition. Did they really believe they were going to get the entire ecosystem? Seems kind of wishful thinking, doesn't it? But we relied on so you're relying on something that was Totally implausible. But continuing on, which didn't happen, shockingly. So we're making a few changes to our approach. So they're basically going to get rid of paying, creator fees, as they call them. Artist royalties is another word. Move to optional creator fees on all sections. So basically, they're going to give people the option to not pay the royalty. And you can read all the details here. I'm kind of over the whole thing and the fact that they're still kind of trying to work this out in their brain. Continues to disappoint and continues to just, a perpetual letdown. That's what I mean. I don't know what else to call it. What do you call it? Feel free to leave a comment. Am I wrong? So Mark Cuban, who is pretty successful entrepreneur, and an investor in OpenSea, not collecting and paying royalties on NFT sales is a huge mistake by OpenSea. It diminishes trust in the platform and hurts the industry. And I say this as an OpenSea investor, Devin Finzer. So kind of naming names and shaming. Very small account there, interestingly. So absolutely, people underestimate the power of soft power, which is what? Values. People really underestimate the power of values. If you are in a relationship for a long time, what spans decades, at the end of the day, it's probably values, shared values, that is keeping you together here. So OpenSea, lets go of their values. So of course, yeah. So of course, we don't need to dwell on this. And sure, there are many arguments that could be made in favor of OpenSea. They're doing it to survive, Blur, etc. Robness, 1983. Truth be told, even from the beginning, OpenSea never put a lot of the original Gangsters, OG's projects on the front page, so I really could care less what happens to them. They always pumped whatever they chose and let the rest of our contracts sit on the sidelines. I've never forgotten that. And one tweet I didn't bring up, I guess Yuga Labs, the Bored Apes collection, I guess they're going to take, I think all new collections, I don't know if they can take their old collections off, but anything new, they're not going to put on OpenSea, which the importance of that is it's probably the biggest source of revenue, if I had to guess, to OpenSea was probably Yuga Labs. So just kind of interesting there. And finally, object.com, we will always respect royalties, and retweeting a tweet from November 7th. So again, this debate, it's kind of sad that it keeps going, and then they keep going back, and then there's pushback. So it's just kind of sad. So credit to Object. You have to give credit to Object. Here's why Object will not switch to 0% royalties and committed to putting creators first. So, if I was Object, and I don't know if they're working on this, it would be great. But if I was Object, I don't know why they're not going multi-chain and getting because they have a better UI, I would argue, than OpenSea. And then why can't you do Ethereum-based tokens? I don't know. There's probably a good reason for it. But I just think it's interesting. Strange thing. Kind of an enigmatic statement here. Henry Ward Beecher once said, "Every artist dips his brush in his own soul and paints his own nature into his pictures." Back to our earlier discussion on human nature, and paints their own, inner world in their pictures. Nowadays, and this is what I was highlighting, AI-powered brushes are diving into the depths of imagination that even the masters couldn't have even dreamed of. Now, I'm just kind of curious, are there AI-powered brushes, or is Strange Thing talking a bit metaphorically? I don't know, but interesting and cool work here. Interesting work. I assume this is an AI work, and kind of Strange Thing's signature here. Just kind of, so artist in the studio from Strange Thing. And here's Popple showing a little bit of behind the scenes. So of course we remember this work from, I think it was called Sanitarium, that series, and this great reflection there. So this is loosely based on this, actually quite closely based on this. Tough Star by the great John Bauer, work versus inspiration. So that is pretty cool, and a beautiful interpretation here by Popple, and beautifully done. So just, more credit to Popple here. as he connects himself with the tradition. And here was an interesting work or post. Galina Nikitina, who makes really beautiful work. I think Ed Marola was just singing the praises of Galina Nikitina. With kind of a sad post. I'm tired, friends. I'm tired. I'm working every day like 30 years. I'm still not salesman for my paintings. I'm still poor. I don't know what to do next. I can only do this. I can do only this. I'm only an artist. Yeah, and this is the reality, really, for most artists. And look at how great this artist is. So hope springs eternal. And that is just the, unfortunately, that is the artist's life. Otherwise, everybody would be an artist. Who doesn't want to make pictures for a living? So it's a tough world, but I don't know. I could see Galina Nikitina breaking through at some point here. Uxine, kind of along the similar lines here, an artist that has broken through. Artist checklists: live in a small windowless apartment with constant noises, consume instant noodles as a daily dietary staple, endure a 3-hour commute for a 10-hour workday. That sounds like very likely based on Uxine's life. Avoid any time off or breaks, distance oneself from conventional societal norms. So just echoing the point here, Uxine, on, the realities of being an artist. It's not an easy domain. So into our works here, finally. How are we doing here? Half an hour. Okay, we're going to run through this. Beautiful work here by Uxine. Let me just make sure we have this. Let's do this, do this, do this. Okay, so beautiful work here by Uxine. Actually, one of my favorite, favorite subject matter, doing these old kind of retro action figure packages. I did this actually in my Nostalgia Studies series, but Uxine does his own version, Cyborg Reaper, because they're so cool. But I mean, totally makes it his own, gififies it, crypto art. Death transcending traditional boundaries, becoming a force that exists beyond the realms of both biology and machinery. So that kind of ironic sense of humor, and even the things, the halo around the person, almost like the monk figure as an action figure. So almost like the Uxine character as an action figure. And this is great too. The eyes, making it look easy here again. And this is beautiful too. Taking this kind of script and pixelating it. Turning into squares, really, again, making it look easy and showing dexterity. Even here, keeping that original, because that makes it even worth more. If you ever collect Star Wars action figures, which I never did, but I paid attention. If you have this part inside, well, that's worth even more. So mint condition over here. Beautiful. And look at all this, just making it look easy, just a master here. Speaking of, again, Dan Control continues to dazzle here. Again, I think 21 years old with this stunning mythological work here. This is Minotaurus, immersed in the labyrinth. He wanders, edition of 20. There are still 7 left. I guess it's selling for 18 Tezos, so at a higher price here. But of course, Tezos is at 70 cents, so it's not crazy. And this is quite an ambitious work here by Dan Control. Beautifully done here. And so I'm not sure if this is Jason and the Argonauts or Hercules. Here is the Minotaur, and I want to say it's like Jason, but I'm not actually positive on that. Cool little thing here, and nice little gradients in the background there. You've seen like the evolution of Dan's style here. Like you're really seeing like these little kind of chunks here. Really interesting details here. Like it's changing. The nature of these works is changing, even showing the muscle, but not going too far. Right? We're discussing that with RJ, kind of the interpretation. How far do you go? Right? I mean, that is part of the art. It's kind of one of those things that is a more indirect thing. That is not as obvious, right? But that's one of like a very important thing. It's how you interpret what you decide to keep, what you decide to get rid of when you're using a reference, for example, or when you're trying to portray an object. Now, another just really cool thing is you see the labyrinth here. The interpretation of the labyrinth is also brilliant here, because it's almost like this maze. And there is a slight difference between a labyrinth and a maze. I looked it up about 6 months ago. My girlfriend was asking what the difference is. There is a slight difference here, but what I love about it is actually these kind of gradients that are in here, which just add a kind of complexity that was probably required from a design point of view when Dan Control was composing it. He probably had simple green, blocks to begin with, and it was probably a little simple. Then adds this beautiful interpretation of the wall here, this labyrinth wall, and beautiful. And look at the hair. I mean, it's tempting to make this big, but we simply have too much work to go through. But beautiful, beautiful work. Look at Padrino. Padrino, I came so close to starting with this. This is a super cool work here. A beautiful surrealist work. Now, this is the still version. And I'm just thrilled because Padrino started maybe, I guess it's probably been 4 months ago, if that, started making works. And then within 4 months, few months, we start seeing really beautiful work here. Like just in terms of the composition, I think the others might have, not exactly, we can open it very quickly here. Yeah, the others were like portraits, remember? Like to me, like look at these, this is like another order of magnitude of ambition, you might say, in the composition, right? And let me show you the moving version. And there's something else. Remember, I talk about the tension of copies, the tension of digital copies. So this is the dynamic version, right? And you see kind of in the zeitgeist here, aliens kind of with this guy, looking over the sea. I can kind of relate to that a little bit. It kind of feels like Rhodes there, Rhodes, Greece. Love the cactus, really cool. But if we look, communion and communique. So this one is moving, edition of 15, and then this one is static. And I think it's an open question, actually, which, is the preferable one, and everybody can make their own mind. And there's another interesting issue is you look at the ratio. This one is, you might say, uncropped. This one is more cropped. I actually think I prefer the static, just personally, even though they both have their charms and it's a tough decision. But it's kind of an interesting thing here. So cool conceptual game here. I mean, we saw that in Rat Cloak a little bit. This tension of making a digital copy and playing with that. I find this incredibly interesting, and how that works in the market, right? So, and again, this one's slightly different. So there's a tension there, though, right? Again, should that person be copying it? But playing and just going to the edge, and then being able to kind of being able to provide people with a justification, which I think we do. It is different enough. One is dynamic, one is static. The composition ratio is different. Some people might prefer the dynamic version, right? So there's enough kind of dialogue between these works that we go, okay, right, that's fine, right? But there is a tension. Continuing on, cool collaboration here between Rosetio and Rinifish. Let me just get it going here. It's kind of amazing this hasn't happened earlier. So, of course, we see Rosetio, the eyeball, iconography, and almost like they're playing with each other. It's almost like this is Rosetio, and this is Rinifish, and they are having fun, and all their characters together and everything. So just a really cool collaboration. Shell Shock, very cool title, playing off of Seashell. And so very cool here. And now 57 on secondary, only one available, and they sold for 11 on primary. So congrats to the sale, 20 editions. PP Universal continues to impress. I saw this on Instagram, a beautiful black and white work here, beautiful portrait, really original work as usual. Nice use of the black and white, kind of desaturating everything, I imagine. Just a very nice piece here. From PP. So just really enjoying watching that artist develop here. Rat Cloak with some super original works here. This is massive, 8,000 by 3,500 pixels. Now on secondary for 95 Tezos and selling on primary and all sorts of, at 35 Tezos each. So let me just bring this up here. Very interesting composition. Kind of has a bit of a boardroom sort of feeling at first, because I see all these, almost like a board of directors thing. But then maybe you think, oh, maybe this is like an artist sitting in a chair, and then you're just not sure. It's the same artist, you realize, and then it's kind of turning. I've never seen a work like this before, and fascinating color. Again, it's sort of like I talk about graphic design as the thankless profession, because when you do it right, people go, of course. And that's kind of how this color is here. You go, oh, of course, this olive green and this deep purple can work together nicely, but it's actually quite creative. All the philosophy, the visual philosophy, all of the thinking, all of the experience that goes into having the courage to put these colors together and go, yeah, in fact, this is beautiful. Again, it's kind of like, remember Ratcloak was saying on the last works we looked at, it's about color. There's this very much, I would argue, in that line of color experimentations and explorations. We have another one. This one a bit more narrative, we might say, and kind of a dark work here. Again, kind of like that Bacon feeling over here, and kind of a target practice with real people underneath. And of course, Ratcloak is in Ukraine, so you do wonder if there is a subtext here. So a dark work here from Ratcloak, full of possible interpretations. The head being blown open here by an axe and blood everywhere. A dark work and infinity. 1, 2, 3, 4, infinity. So off you go. Interesting color. Again, so red and green opposites on the color wheel, so complementary colors. So interesting there, and nice use of color in the numbers. Continuing on, Bizaya, the last pink dance. So the final of this, what was it called? Sky Paradise. The sky is the limit, the last pink dance. So I believe Bizaya was saying online on Twitter, on X, that this is the final work. So kind of a grand finale here. And this looks like almost Kim out of North Korea slam dunking things, and then the bull and everything. So all the mayhem of a Bizaya work here, even like the crazy dinosaur, the great color and everything, the texture. Let's just see, lots of offers on it, and accepted offers of 27 Tezos. So a nice 270 Tezos for Bizaya in a tough market. This was interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen Quetzalcoatl. Sad Boy's Anthem is the series. Floor is Lava is the name of the work. Kind of an interesting piece here. Looks like a digital work, but quite painterly. Has kind of, again, this kind of internet iconography with the cursor, the messaging, and the floor on fire. You have some kind of retro tech here, this figure maybe in the tech, and then this kind of mysterious, figure with almost made of, outer space and galaxies, and then this upside down animal. So just a mysterious work, nice texture, balloon. Did anything happen? Sold for 0.3 to Medici Emerging 23. So 0.3 Tezos, interesting work. Continuing on, I thought Santiago did a brilliant job with this Tezdown. So probably asked by the Tezdown people to make a work. I thought this was quite a brilliant solution. Looks, again, it's easy to look at these solutions in retrospect and go, of course that's what should have happened. But quite brilliant, if you ask me. It's making it look easy. Basically taking a work and putting the Tezdown glasses on it. I'm sure a little more than that. And then maybe a couple of layers on top, but I thought quite brilliant. Ed Marola put out quite a few works. I decided to take Plant Portrait almost randomly. I kind of like swamp. It's almost like a Swamp Thing type figure. And this person made of plants. And again, playing with this kind of profile picture structure and interesting framing here and everything. And just kind of an interesting work, interesting outline here with this brush. So very cool. Ed's going to be on a Spaces in a week and a half. So I'm thrilled about that. I think he's on vacation this week. So this is a one of one for only $38.44. And there are a few that are available. Here's an edition of 16 for 3 Tezos. Abstract 2, interesting title. And here is just a person maybe smoking a cigarette, a very long cigarette here, and with some interesting patterning, classic Ed Marola colors, but adding a brown in here in the skin color. So kind of interesting there. 8 left for 3 Tezos. And this was quite interesting as well on the Ed Marola front. Algarvian Dream with Love from a 2018 Dream. So this is a one of one for 70 Tezos, less than $50, by the way. Kind of a slightly different style here. And we do see, I don't know if you can see it, but there is a slight dithering that goes in this gradient, but all so slight. And kind of a, you might say the dithering, there's not too much dithering though. The pixelation has been minimized, kind of going closer to an RJ type feeling, or some of the Microsoft Paintworks by Ratcloak. Interesting composition, isn't it? And so maybe a woman by a pool perhaps, but just from, the outside here, interesting composition. Now, also interesting is the account it came from. Eduardo Pulitzer, which is Ed Marola's, quote unquote, real name, Ed Marola Other Self, the first work here. So you can get Eduardo Pulitzer's Genesis here for only 70 Tezos here. So it'll be interesting to see how this develops. Burka Bayram with a beautiful Last Supper homage here. And so almost looks like a Pepe figure here. And I thought quite brilliantly done. Again, it's kind of another kind of technique we've long discussed here, which is this idea of first you make your outlines, let's say, and then you use the outlines as an opportunity to put different kinds of patterning, whether it's different kinds of brushes, as we see with Human Kernel, or here in Burka Bayram's case, different kinds of just patterning, right? So different kinds of shapes and styles of shapes and everything. So instantly recognizable as The Last Supper. Here's the doorway, by the way, in Milan. I don't think I haven't been to this because you have to buy a ticket like a couple of days ahead of time. If you ever go to Milan, buy the ticket ahead of time. It is in Milan. Sabato with some cool works here. So this is on Zora, where Sabato's having a lot of fun. Le Mystère Mario Paint, a really beautiful. Let me open this in a new tab. They really, maybe I just can't find the maximize, but they really do need a maximize button there. So I thought this was quite brilliant and beautiful from Sabato. So another glitch work. So playing with Mario Paint, right? So that's kind of one meta, but then glitching it, doing the ROM glitch on the Mario Paint game. So kind of a double meta, for lack of a better term here, and playing with the user interface as we're going to see. So as we saw with RJ at the start, user interface as subject. Very long work here too. I mean, a few 15 seconds maybe. So here's the UI, and we're going to see that in other works here too. So first, let's look at this one, this one of one from the Barbie World Nintendo Glitch ROM. And I found this kind of humorous. This kind of car going through that's completely, just blown, for lack of a better term, deconstructed. Not really the right use of the term there, but we will use it. Went to ClownVamp for 150 Tezos. So ClownVamp, that's a pretty cool, because ClownVamp buys a lot of AI. So that's cool. So ClownVamp is on board with this one of one. And again, 150 Tezos, nice sale in a tough market from Sabato. Again, playing with a kind of user interface subject matter. So a new drawing exercise from Sabato. And Sabato is one of these guys, or one of these people that can play with these different series and has done enough of them that there's a credibility. So when Sabato jumps from series to series, there's a continuity. And so you don't think twice. You go, oh, it's a Sabato drawing exercise. So beautiful work here and kind of hilarious. So Sabato's rabbit, I think, Rosalind, select your snack. So just kind of a homage to Sabato's pet here Really nicely done here too. And again, making it look easy. See this flat blue? Because if you put a gradient back here, it probably gets too busy and it probably wrecks it. So it creates a contrast by just making it a flat blue here. And then you add these gradients here and everything. You start getting different contrasts. This is moving, this is flat, static, so different contrasts at work here, which help make that succeed. Still only 21 Tezos on secondary. How much did it sell for on primary? 9 Tezos only on primary. Really beautiful work. Great color, as usual, from Sabato. Another work here. Another different series. Raw Skies. I got some data bends in this series, but I'm reticent to mint them on Solana because that series is so neglected and undervalued there. I wish Tezos wasn't 70 cents. Yeah, I think I picked one up of these because they were really, really cheap. And so here's another just beautiful, what do they call it? Raw Skies from Sabato that he's just sitting on. Kind of cool, almost double sunset here, or sunrise. Here's another one. And so just beautiful work here. Beautiful glitch art from Sabato. This was super interesting. So Figments, also known as Cap'n, collaborated with Chris War, who made the audio for this, and it was very fitting. There we go. I mean, it's perfect. It's kind of a perfect match, isn't it? So I thought the music matched perfectly, and I love the title. The Theory of Human Consciousness. The Theory of Human Consciousness. Brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant. And here you see this kind of soul obliterated, and this kind of almost like quantum physics and galaxies. Incredibly interesting work here from Figments, also known as Cap'n. And here's another one from Figments. Very cool title here too. Mixing the pixel work in with the Figments series. So interesting combination. And so this is edition of 20. And it's going for 555. So there may be utility here. I'm not sure, but I know Figments was talking about making the pixels have utility. So maybe there's something going on there. I thought this was incredibly interesting too, and I'm trying to go fast here. But Michael Micasso, who was in the space that we were discussing earlier, you know what I loved about this, and you've probably noticed it here too? This horizontal lines. It's almost breaking away. It seems to be a development here, and playing with these different kinds of, kind of reminiscent of these retro screens, but it's kind of like a different play on the pixel art, because it's playing with, again, these kind of horizontal screen lines. And to me, this felt like kind of breaking away a little bit from these, for lack of a better term, dithered gradients, or from dithering. And you see, it's the light, right? The light comes in and then it creates this kind of, then you put in the horizontal lines to create that light. So just very, very, very interesting. And another thing that evokes the old screens, can you guess? The green. It looks like an old Apple IIe computer screen. That old Apple II green. Hear me, walk with me, Adam. Good morning. So just very, very cool work. Here's another work. Black and white building until 5 years ago. It was all monochromatic. That is translated from, I think, Japanese. And this is Komiyama with some just really interesting pixel artwork. Let me remove that. Translate. So you see kind of a UFO here. And just super interesting black and white work. I mean, these are probably tiny files, by the way. The sort of stuff that can be minted in a lot of different, places with limited capacity. So just, again, we see these horizontal lines here. Interesting, mixed with kind of more of a, I guess I'd call this more of a four on the floor, but not exactly dithered. Different kind of style here, though, isn't it? Like, look at that cloud. And this person skateboarding, I mean, totally mysterious works. And here's like almost, what looks like a 19th century Japanese woodcut figure on a boat, right? Fascinating, mysterious, beautiful experimental pixel art here from Element Lee. We have a few. Double Dragon here. Nice, just like 2-color work. Again, probably tiny files. And I guess these are the dragons here, but they look like steps. Totally mysterious and cool. Love this too. It kind of looks like a book and some abstractions in it, and here's like a house, here is some writing, almost like a manuscript, all sorts of interesting stuff here. Let's see if there's a clue. Space and property rights, like almost like documentation. Fascinating. Here's another one, village. And so almost looks like a ski village, where these almost look like those things you can take to the top to ski back down. Not sure. Some nice dithering here, just beautiful work as usual. And this one's moving, dragon. So another dragon from Element Lee. And so just kind of randomly seemingly random iconography. Here we have a rain cloud, dragon, sun, black sun, a column, almost like charging, the Bluetooth, right? Fascinating. One more here, and this kind of has a bit more color and kind of has a feel of a video game here. Retro is the digestion of the past, so Golf is the title here. 256 by 256 pixels. Super interesting. And here seems to be the figure who's going to golf and is aiming maybe for here. So very cool. Green Ginger, I am winning. So playing off of that solitaire, when you win in solitaire, when you finish the game. But interestingly, they're all the king's cards here, and then the queen comes through and the jack. So just kind of an interesting piece, and the jack comes at the end. This piece is inspired by a winning animation of a classic solitaire game. Exactly. So very cool work from Green Ginger. And another beautiful one from Chaz, doing this kind of retro tech. And here is a Game Boy. Yeah, this is a certain kind of Game Boy, one of the later ones. And this is selling for $9.49 on secondary. Let's just check out. Sold only for 2 Tezos on primary here. Just another beautiful pixel artwork with a game inside of it, and even you see the button moving. So just cool work as usual. This was interesting. So Vanner Man on Super Rare. You know what's interesting? Like, there is pixel art on Super Rare, but you really don't see a ton of it. Now, what's interesting about these works, Byte Gangs, are one of one's 100% on-chain unique. So these are 100% on-chain on Ethereum. So that is interesting. So there's no image to connect to. It is the token, is the work. And there is something to be said for that. And I tell you, like, the market has an appreciation for that. 11 ETH, so $18,000 for this work. So if you can make work on-chain, that is appreciated by the market here. So let's just see what happened here. Quite a few bids, and this went all the way up from 0.9 to 11. So that is quite something. Xeno Skull Gang, almost kind of blurry, surprisingly here. Not sure what that's about. I mean, not exactly blurry, but not super crisp like, say, this is. Here is some beautiful work by Françoise Gamma, great colors, and love this kind of pixelation in the sky to create just a slight color change here. Landvix, I assume from 2009, probably older work. 3 Tezos, brilliant. Here's another one, 5 Tezos, and is that on secondary? So Landvix 2, so a nice little series here. These look like branches looking up at this beautiful sun that is changing shape here, and just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So this is Low Acme, kind of an ad that was put out by VerseWorks. I thought this was a beautiful ad for art. And let me show you the works themselves. 15,000 views, that's pretty good. So then if you go to Verse's website, you see actually quite a beautiful page here. They did a really nice job. And if you click on these, I believe you get the works. So here's number 72. So beautifully dithered kind of black and white pixel artwork. I wonder how big this is. Like, that's kind of one of the questions I would start to have here, just in terms of what is the size? I don't see here in terms of the kilobytes or byte size. But anyway, interesting, beautiful series here out on Verse. And here's just one more, number 12. So quite a few. I assume it's generative art. Just kind of a cool series here. Running along here, Datura. Edition of 6, 39 Tezos on secondary. So that is impressive. Nice price there, and selling out for 2 Tezos on primary. So actually, this came all the way from December. I might have had this bookmarked perhaps because this is actually from way back December 21st, 2022. So interesting. Automatic memory, panorama, moon height rise, aurora. Now I got a notification on that. So interesting. So Mirrorcat NFT, just kind of another interesting pixel artwork here. Just experimental, kind of leaving stuff out. And this butterfly here, just interesting. Not sure if it's been minted anywhere. Notan Mariana, stillness. So this looks like it's using KidPix, I believe, based on this rose here and general feel of the work. And so just another interesting experimental work, digital collage from Notan Mariana, and there are 3 left at 5 Tezos. A lot of people will be familiar with this artist, Elna Frederick, social media. And so social media plaque is the description, and here you see the evolution of humanity as they are crouched over their computer here with this beautiful kind of rainbow here. Very cool. And Spiegel's Maskinen, jump in. So kind of a trippy work here from Spiegel's. As we can see, almost a portal into another dimension from the laptop here. So just kind of a cool kind of optical illusion of sorts here. This tablet turning into a laptop with what looks like an ancient mouse, 90 Tezos on secondary. And let's just see what happened here. 25 Tezos on primary. And it looks like it sold pretty quickly, within a few hours. So nice haul there for Spiegel's Maskinen. Pixel Dealer, digital block. Actually, this is from June. I'm not sure we saw this though. So this is 3 Tezos on, I'm not sure if that's primary or secondary, just an interesting animated abstract work. There are 20 left on primary from Pixel Dealer. And this was awesome. I'm sure a lot of you saw this. This kind of stood out. This is from 8So and doing a work with DOS Punk's DAO on Nifty Gateway. So I assume this is all sold at this point. July 2023, featured artist, future turntable. So this was released shortly after I left for Rhodes, but I thought just a really cool turntable work. Old turntable, great subject matter as usual. Dr. Version with a couple of cool landscapes here. Again, making these outlines and using them to as opportunities to put different patterning in, excuse me. And again, playing with orange and green. Also, now green, maybe orange and green are the complementary colors. So red, is it blue? That's the complementary. I should really know that. And then purple and yellow. That is, so we'll go back to our complementaries here soon. So landscape number 14, another beautifully textured work here from Dr. Version. So a couple of new ones here from the Roberto Matta inspired artist here, and these beautiful kind of textures here in these interesting kind of Kiriko-esque landscapes. I thought this was super interesting as we wrap up here with Santiago, Old Midjourney. And look at how kind of beautifully textured this Old Midjourney work is. I found that quite interesting. And you can tell it's AI from the writing here. Kind of beautiful painterly work here. So I found that interesting. Even the edges here, I find that just super interesting. Another Midjourney work. This is a new one by Mikey de la Creme, or Mikey Wilson, Bank Robber Blues. And so just another beautifully kind of painterly guitar work here from Mikey de la Creme. And this looks like it's sold out on primary at 10 Tezos each. And a couple from Tukes here, a couple experiments from Tukes. The Dreamer is Still Asleep, an AI artwork here. Very interesting work as usual. Look at this. And here is another one by Tukes, Going to Sleep Numb with Odd Thoughts. So just interesting work here. This one a bit more cybernetic. And another one from Tim Lahan, whose work we have been enjoying over here. This is physical. Okay, you can see the blue paper here kind of painted seemingly right to the edge, but then this kind of pixelation here. And again, the contrast of the hard edge with kind of like the soft pigeons here, or birds together. Strange composition, isn't it? And a couple by Die with the Most Likes. Feed, all influencers become one too. So just a really cool painting here. Getting really good at the paintings. Here's another one that I thought was quite brilliant. These look like selfie sticks. And some creative writing here. Great work from Die with the Most Likes. And finally, Matej Machatsek, who is showing, I'm not sure exactly where, but this is ink, acrylic, and paper on canvas. So interesting work here. I found on Instagram, and of course I've shown Nugget Brain many times, huge fan. The Hollywood Sign, just an awesome, awesome painter here. Easy to love. And there with Bricks Gallery here. Here's another one by Nugget Brain, who's also known as Luca Bjornston. Works on canvas and paper at their opening here. So there's a close-up. Just beautifully, kind of very simple, isn't it? But just brilliantly, beautifully done. Here's another artist, Lenz Gierk, born 1988, based in Dusseldorf, Germany, born in Switzerland. You know, eating pasta. Just another really interesting, kind of almost somewhat looking like they're somewhat influenced by German Expressionism a little bit. Just interesting artist here. Very kind of modernist looking, isn't it? And finally, maybe you can guess the artist. Walk with a warplane, Jet. Almost looks like a stealth fighter or something. So very cool drawing here from Walk. I love the war theme because it's so topical and relevant. It's interesting subject matter. And I thought this was kind of fun and cool. Very good, very bad. Acrylic, flash, fabric, and printed media on canvas. This is from Michael Pebus, if I'm pronouncing that right. I thought just a cool work, making it look easy and just very cool. And that is your show, my friends. Thank you for joining me. And I'm going to try and make these a lot shorter, but the first one back had to be a little longer to catch us up. Until next time, take care.